In the next steps, I'm going to show you how to check the gap of the piston rings. We're going to start first with the old piston rings. We're going to check the gaps, and also we're going to reference them against the new ones. The new piston rings are made by Schmidt, which is part of Rheinmetall. This is probably one of the biggest German manufacturers, and they're actually manufacturing the original parts in this engine. For example, I want to show you the piston here. I believe the logo is on the inside, so you've got the Renault logo and you also KS for Schmidt. So you're probably not going to see it very well here, but just in case if you have any doubt, the original parts in this engine are made by Schmidt, which is why I'm going with that brand. The new piston rings, they're made, as I said, by KS or Schmidt. They come in this pouch, so you've got the top compression piston ring, you've got the middle one and the bottom scraper piston ring with the metal coil. So we're gonna insert this one first, then after that, and then the third one at the end. The third one is not really, we don't have to worry about it so much, but we're gonna check it as part of this study. And these are the old piston rings. I've already done some pre-checks, and there's quite a difference, quite a bigger gap between the old ones and the new ones. This can only make it better, and also as long as we stick within the tolerance here, which is shown. So this is the factory manual. Got a micrometer here, which I'm going to be using to take some measurements, just to make sure that the thickness of the piston rings is exactly the same. So you want to make sure that you're checking the exact engine you're working on. So in my case it's F9Q 760. You see there's many different variants of this F9Q. So the compression ring, it should be between 0.15 and 0.30. The second sealing ring should be between 0.7 and 0.9. And the third one, scraper, should be 0.25 to 0.50. Now they're all important, but the reason I said you don't have to worry so much about the third one, the scraper oil ring, is because it doesn't get as hot like the top two, especially like the top compression ring. So it doesn't expand as much, but obviously we're going to make sure everything is within the tolerances. Now I'm going to put the camera on the stand. We're going to check the thickness of these old piston rings versus the new ones, and then we're going to place them in the cylinders, push them halfway with this piston, and then take some measurements with a filler gauge. And I've got two different sets, of course, where I've calibrated these and I've checked them with a micrometer, and the values are exactly 100%. These are the new piston rings, these are the old ones. So we're going to start by checking the thickness of the old one. So we're getting on this part of the piston ring about 2.48. So let's call it 2.48. We're going to take another measurement here, 2.484, and the final measurement somewhere around here, 2.477. Okay, that's the worn piston ring. The manual says this should be 2.5, and we're much closer to the standard value with this new piston ring. .484. 2.49. Let me do another one just in case. .486. So not so much more wear. The next one is going to be about 2. 1.98. Same. 1.9. This is exactly the same everywhere. 1.98 was the figure on the old one. That's more like it. Okay, and another 1.99, And just one more measurement. 2.995, 99, 2.99 again, and the last piston ring 2.98, 3, 2.985, 986, 2.98. Perfect. We're gonna check the gap of the old piston rings first, and then we're gonna do the new ones. So we're gonna start with the top compression piston ring, and this is how I like to install them. So just insert it sideways and then push it down. I'm gonna spray just a little bit of WD-40 for the purpose of this measuring exercise, and then just push it down. I like to go to about here, halfway. Okay, that's perfect. Let's get our filler gauge, and I'm just automatically gonna go to the thickest one of all, which is 1.0. This is 1 millimeter. Doesn't fit. We'll go down to the next one, which is on the other side, and the next one is going to be 0.9, and 0.9 fits. You can see this is 0.90. So now we're gonna proceed with the new one. Filler gauge. I can tell you just by looking at it that the gap is much smaller, and we're just gonna go, maybe we're gonna try 0.4 first, just for the sake of this exercise. And I can tell you 0.4 doesn't fit. We've got 0.35, and yes, we've got 0.35 gap on the new piston ring. So the standard values are 0.15 to 0.30, and in this case it's 0.35. And as I said, this engine runs perfectly fine on a cold start, hot start, plenty of power, even with the 0.9 gap. So obviously we have been losing a little bit of compression, but it wasn't enough to cause any performance issue that you could actually feel when you're driving the vehicle. So this should make things only better. And at 0.35 we're literally just 0.05 off the standard the higher end of the spec. And of course you're going to have some wear on the cylinder as well. It's very minimal, but there's obviously still some wear. We're basically going to be nearly 3 times better off than where we are previously. So just be very gentle when you're placing these in and out. Second piston ring. The gap here is even bigger from what I can tell. I haven't done any measurements on the second piston ring yet, but I can tell that the gap here is probably over 1. So if it's over 1, we're not even going to bother, because my filler gauges go up to 1.0. Yeah, that's probably 1.2, 1.3, something like that. 0.9, no, 0.8, nope. And I assume the next one is going to be the correct one, 0.7. Yes, somewhere around 0.75. What does the standard spec say? 0.7 to 0.9. So we're bang on. This is F9Q 760. The first one is 0.15 to 0.30, 0.7 to 0.9, which we are right in the middle. And then the third one is going to be 0.25 to 0.50. So let's see if that matches. So you want to do obviously all these measurements before you install the piston rings on the pistons. This one is pretty loose. As you can tell, bigger gap. This is obviously the used one. Slides down very easy. 0.7, very tight fit. So you're talking somewhere like 0.69 or 68. So this was the used one. I'm just gonna go to 0.60 and see what happens from there. Nope. 0.50. Nope. 0.4. No. 0.35 on the third one.